Hi everyone, here we are at the end of autumn. I'm out here in this beautiful snowy forest. I'm going to be reviewing the Nikon 14-24mm f2.8 S lens, which is the latest for their Z-mount mirrorless system, and it's a absolutely fantastic option if you're looking for a wide-angle zoom lens with professional quality. So we're going to head out into the forest, see what this lens can do. Let's go. So I'm back on the farm here in the last of the fall colors, and we're going to talk about image quality. And the 14-24S really is fantastically sharp. It produces beautiful images, and I really have noticed nothing in the way of chromatic aberration or color fringing or any of those sort of problems that you usually associate with lenses. It delivers very clean images. There is a little bit of distortion and of course a little bit of vignetting, especially when shooting at wider apertures, but in general both of those factors are very well controlled. It's also great at shooting into bright light. I have had no trouble with flaring or any of the other problems associated with like taking pictures directly towards the sun or some other bright light source in there. There's only been a few situations where I've gotten any kind of lens flare whatsoever, so that is really impressive. And the sun stars it creates are fantastic. I've gotten kind of addicted to shooting sun stars with this lens, though I haven't had much opportunity to do so due to it being Western Washington in the winter, which means it's gray almost all the time. But anyway, it really does deliver fantastic images. So it's a few days later, it's much colder and it's much noisier out here. I hope that's something coming through on the lav mic, but it is very noisy out here today, really annoying. Anyway, we're going to talk about build quality. And this lens is solidly built. It's very similar in its construction to the 70-200 S lens that Nikon recently released and which I reviewed a few weeks ago. That lens is beautifully built and this one is just as good. It's got a core of metal, definitely metal down here around the base, more plastic exterior out farther with that textured matte surface, and rubberized zoom rings. It feels very solid. Comes with this giant, really protective lens hood. I like that just because it really does save the lens from bumps and bruises, and it's nice to have on there, even though it increases the footprint of the lens, and you can always take that off, and it's very small and compact. So that's nice. And yeah, build quality wise, I have no complaints. It's very well weather sealed, so you don't have to really worry about using this in wet conditions. Overall, very excellent build quality. So in terms of handling, this lens is actually quite light and compact. It may not look it with this giant lens hood on, but it's actually smaller than the 14 to 24 millimeter G, its predecessor, if you take into account the flange distance in a DSLR or an adapter on a mirrorless body. If you take into the complete package with this lens on this camera, it's actually much smaller than if you were using the 14 to 24 millimeter G lens. Now it's also, I think, nice and light and in general very portable, and well, as long as you remove that giant lens hood. And it feels really nice to shoot with. You've got a very short focus throw from 14 to 24 millimeters. You've got a well damped focusing ring, an auto to manual focus switch, a customizable control ring that can be set to a lot of different things. I have it set to ISO. You've got a function button that also has a lot of different customizable settings. I have it set for focus tracking, and a display, which you can cycle through several different things, and I have it set to a distance scale. And overall, this lens handles really well. It's a lot of fun to shoot with. I think actually the control ring and the function, especially the function button, the programmable function button, those in themselves justify a big part of that extra price tag that these lenses entail, because they are just so useful, at least in my experience. So I do need to talk for a minute about autofocus, because this lens, it's very quiet autofocus, it's very fast, and I think on the right camera body it would be very accurate, but that camera body is not the Nikon Z6. The original one that I'm using here, it definitely has a tendency to hunt for focus. When I'm doing, for example, when I'm trying to do subject tracking, it'll very quickly, very easily lose the subject I'm trying to track with it, or not even acquire it in the first place, and it's really annoying. The way to go is definitely single point autofocus when shooting with this lens if you want any kind of accuracy. But with single point autofocus, it's very fast and very quiet. So I think the lens itself does have an excellent autofocusing system. Unfortunately, this lens does not have any image stabilization in the lens. Instead, it relies entirely on the image stabilization in the camera body. Unfortunately, most of Nikon's Z-mount mirrorless bodies do have built-in image stabilization. And that has been pretty effective. With this wide angle, you can get some pretty long exposures, just handheld, and it's also very, very useful for video. I really don't have any complaints about this. It just might have been nice to have some built-in image stabilization, but I can see why they wouldn't have put it in there, because it would have made it a larger, heavier lens, and it would have driven up the price even farther. So I'm not going to take any points off for the lack of image stabilization. Wide-angle lenses like this have always been a favorite of video makers. They're great for vlogging and just for video in general. It's a very useful lens to have in your kit. And for one thing, it's very easy to get smooth footage especially using the in-body image stabilization. And you can get a lot in the frame, and you know, it's something that, you know, even though this lens does not have a tilty, flippy screen that comes out to the side like the Canon 80D I'm shooting on, you can still vlog just at 14 millimeters, hold out like this. You're gonna be in the frame. At 14 millimeters is a super wide angle. And so yeah, for video work, this lens is extremely well suited. So to finish off the review, we're going to be recording with the 14-24, and we're going to talk about price next, because this lens costs $2,400, which is really steep, even for a 14-24, you know, to f2.8. You can get the older version for less than $2,000. You can get the Canon version for $100 less, and the Sigma for $1,000 less. Just simply put, this lens is pretty expensive, but honestly, it's worth the money if you're shooting with the Nikon Z system, because on this camera, it is very compact and delivers amazing image quality. So I would say that if you can afford it, it's worth the money. So in conclusion, this is an awesome lens. It provides spectacular image quality and excellent build quality, but it is very expensive, and wide angle can be very difficult to shoot with. Like I wouldn't recommend super wide angle as your first lens. Definitely go for something like a nifty 50, a standard zoom like a 24-70 or a 70-200. But you will eventually probably want a super wide angle in your kit, because there are some situations where there's just no replacement, and they are very useful. Great for video shooters, and if you're shooting with a Nikon Z mount system, this is definitely a dream lens. If you already have the older 14-24 millimeter for the F mount, then you probably don't need this lens, because that thing's still excellent. This one's only a minor upgrade to that, but it is an excellent native mount lens for the Nikon Z system, and if that's what you're looking for, I can definitely recommend it. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you all again next time. If you enjoyed this video, if you found it helpful, hit that subscribe button, that notification bell, maybe like the video, and yeah, I'll see you all again next time. Bye.